You're tuning in to Gone.net.
Hey, welcome back. Another Gone.net. I'm also back, and I'm assuming you fixed all the problems and built all the things, and this is the last episode just to say goodbye because it's all done.
Well, our original app, Heads Up, is done. It's done enough. So that's cool. It turned out pretty good. I put the link on the repo. People should go out and play with it. It's fantastic. My kids and I play. It's awesome.
I almost, there was another app on the weekend. I don't think it's probably enough for us to try and do, or there's not enough interesting stuff with it, but it was kind of funny because it's in the same vein. I don't know if you've seen it. It's, I don't even know what the app is called, but it's like you record your voice and then it plays it backwards. Like you say something and then somebody else tries to record the backwards spoken part and play it again forwards, so that you see if them talking backwards sounds like the original thing going forward. It's hilarious.
I listen to enough of my son's, I don't know, he listens to something called Brain Rot.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, what the hell is that thing even saying? And he thinks it's hilarious, and I'm like,
yeah,
this is stupid. I
can
go on there and go,
similar.
blah, 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 blah.
Yeah,
give me lots of money.
But yeah,
so yeah, we're back. I guess our last stream was David, because you had to go on vacation, you selfish bastard.
I had to go on vacation, and you had to be old and throw your back.
I screwed up my back last week, so that was lots of fun. The joys of 40s. But I'm back, and John is back. We've got the Blue Jays are 2-2 right now. They won last night, so John's got his hat on. Yeah, his traditional Blue Jays hat. I'm not sure how long that tradition goes.
I've got the white panel in the background too. For all
you can't really see it though on the stream because we're in portrait. I have my traditional cup, my mug. See, cup of generic tea. Fantastic. It's not Halloween themed, but maybe next week. So it's been fun. Lots of stuff going on. We've been off the air for a couple of weeks, so we're getting back into it.
Yeah. What are we doing today, even?
Well, we'll get to that. What other stuff is going on? And so the .NET happenings in the last week that aren't AI. I don't think that happens right now. I know they merged the two libraries. What's it called now? Agentic framework or something.
That's all out there now, right? Is that true?
Yeah, it's all out there now.
I don't know. It's still hard to always know when. I guess I could watch for like announcements, but when stuff is new or not. So it's nice to see that that's out. So that brings together AutoGen and semantic kernel, I guess. Which I
really just use the extensions AI for almost everything now. Like it's going into every app now. It's cool, but it costs a fortune, man. Companies are paying a fortune to run this stuff. I love it.
Well, have you? Then that's it's kind of, it's an interesting space. I've been kind of dabbling in trying to run my own models lately. So much so that, and I didn't tell you this, you're gonna be maybe frustrated. I took my main Windows desktop but I have a path forward because I have a 4090 or 4080 in it, not a 4090. So it's got only 16 gigabytes.
A gaming beast of a machine.
Yeah.
Why he did buy it, regardless of what he tells you, he bought it for flight sim.
I also did buy it thinking I could use it for AI stuff too.
No, it was flight sim. You weren't even thinking AI at the time.
No, I was. Just for tax purposes, I was thinking. So I loaded Proxmox on it. So my plan was like, hey, I have this thing I can dual run, right? Like I can run a Linux VM that can do AI stuff with the video card, and then I can flip back over. In theory, I haven't set the Windows part back up yet, but in theory, I can set a Windows VM and then do like the hardware pass through to it to still game with. So should work out.
I don't think that's going to go well, but
people do it from what I've seen, and like you can even pass through, like it'll output to the monitor, from the video card and stuff. Because like Proxmox is good at like, here's the actual hardware. Like it's not a virtualized thing of it. It's like, here you go.
So
system.
just to remind you, when you got that flight sim thing, you're like, the frame rate's just slightly off. I want it at like this frame rate.
Yeah.
And because it wasn't high enough, you were talking about overclocking. You were talking about what hardware do I got to improve? And now you're going to run it through a damn VM.
Well,
I mean,
it's supposed to be okay. We'll see.
well, I'm waiting to hear about it. I will give an update to say John is complaining. He's getting old. He's complaining about his VM gaming machine.
Well, and you know, it's funny with it too, because like 16 gigabytes for VRAM is not really much to do a whole lot with. Although like models are getting better and smaller models are getting better.
Yeah, the GPT-5 OSS.
Yeah, I can run like the
decent-ish.
20 billion parameter one, and it's not horrible. But like, you know, I went when I bought my Mac most recently, I went through the whole justifying to myself or not to buy more a higher memory version of it, and I'm like, I'm not going to spend the money on it because realistically, I don't need to run local models. And you know, I don't, but I'm kind of curious about them, so I'm kind of sad that I didn't get a higher memory version now. But even that, like I have 48 gigabytes, right? And like some huge part of that you can run models on. So I can actually run bigger models on my Mac than I can on that card, but the Mac isn't quite as fast at doing it.
It's a bit slow.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been trying to do a lot of the AI stuff on the phone because there's some cost savings there to be had, and the model's just too stupid.
Those models are too small. Yeah.
You can't do anything with them, really. I think it's meant for, hey, make an image.
Or like, you know, here's a few words or a few points, like build me a sentence from them, or, you know, like stuff that's not really, it's not going to be useful for like.
Did I swear at you? And the funny part is, if you swear at the Apple one, it just crashes.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't even try and be like, this is inappropriate. It's just like,
yeah.
So you got to catch the exception. You're like, oh, it's a fantastic model.
Right now, hardware is silly for doing local stuff. But the other thing I was reading is like we're almost at a new generation of you know, memory for like desktops and stuff, right? So when DDR6 starts coming, you know, full, you know, release and stuff's out there to buy it, in theory, that might be good enough to do a lot of AI stuff on. Like apparently the memory bandwidth is like if you got like 256 gigs of DDR6 and you paired it with apparently like a AMD Threadripper, the memory channels and stuff are like you can hit speeds that are kind of like what some of the GPUs are doing for memory speeds, which is like the big thing in terms of performance for models running, right? If it is just like, and that's why Mac isn't quite as great because the memory is not quite as fast.
The thing is, though, is the CPU is so much better on the Mac.
Yeah.
I think it's just a matter of time, right? So next year with my touchscreen M6 Pro.
Well, and the memory will be faster on that, and that will be a serious contender. Like even the M5 that they announced, apparently the memory is like another 30-ish% faster, which makes a big difference with LLM stuff. Like that CPU is not the one to get for this right now, but it shows if the base M5 is that much faster with the memory shared, you know, the next M5 Pro or Ultra or whatever, you know, Max is going to be probably looking pretty good for that stuff.
And the phone will still be stupid, but you know, there's another market that they could use with the foldable phone. I'm saying foldable phones because it's coming. It's coming, John.
I just think it was that is probably delayed till 2027 now.
Oh no, you're just doing that to.
No, I swear, I just read it this morning. There's rumors.
Anyhow, it's coming. It's coming. My iPhone foldable is coming. And you know, the things you can run on it. I mean, it's already bad enough with glass. You know, it could be a hand warmer. You could literally put it in a glove in the winter, and it just, you know, cooks your hands a little bit.
I saw someone do like a bit of it wasn't like super scientific process around it, but a bit of analysis of the what's the control center, right? When you like swipe down, that they kind of figured out that screen was just chewing through battery life, and they like did a measurement of having that screen up or something, and it was like it took up more battery usage than just playing a video.
But it looks like glass.
But it looks nice. But like that was how bad it was. Is they figured out that it was worse on your battery than playing video back, like full screen video.
Well, I mean, who needs a reliable phone? I guess I don't know.
Yeah, that's pretty. But yeah, no, Apple, it might be foldable could be delayed till 2027. Sorry.
John just says that because he likes to see me depressed on the stream. I think personally, he's been him
We-
and I have been arguing with
Hey,
for
listen.
years. I've been dreaming it's coming.
Listen.
You know, it's at least you're admitting it's coming now.
Oh, it's coming. It's definitely coming. But you know, it was a good day yesterday. The Blue Jays won. The Leafs won. So I have to find something to fill that hole of lack of depression that usually those teams provide. Well, not the Blue Jays. That's not fair. But usually, at least the Leafs provide me with.
Yeah, fair enough. So I've been doing source generators out the wazoo lately. You haven't done a lot of.
I haven't done a lot of them, and I'm assuming you're still using AI to do a lot of the work around them for you. Or have you gotten to the point where you're like Matrix and you just see source generators as you?
No,
code?
I wish.
Yeah,
source generators are difficult, right?
Yeah.
What I've been doing is I'm pretty good because source generators you basically know what you're putting in, what you're getting out, right? So it's because there's an input, there's a defined input and a defined output. It's very easy to say, AI, this is what I want. I want you to write a source generator. Given this, I want this.
So
and it's really good at getting you started. Actually, I don't even want to say getting started because in a lot of cases it gives me something that's almost done and I have to tweak it. I'm fine with that.
I still remember like the one that I did, you know, that actually like shipped in anything. Shipped is a strong word. It was more for like our own code base. It was like in the Maui code base, we wanted to make sure that all tests had like a certain attribute on them so that we were making, I forget exactly. Anyway, I used AI to do it, right? And it was like first try. And this was like a while back already, like older models. And it was just like, here you go. And I'm like, that was perfect. It worked. I didn't have to do anything. Just did it.
It's been pretty good. And especially with things where it's very focused on what it needs to accomplish. And I put it in a box. So I find when I let it go crazy, it produces what we call the AI slop. You focus that thing down, even if you give it a full spec, it really kind of writes, right? You give it a defined space where it's just, here's your input, here's your output. It flourishes.
I'm curious now that you've done a bunch of them and been in that space a bunch. Like one thing I always kind of struggled with in conceptualizing how I wanted to write one or use one was like there's some patterns that are going to be faster than others with source generators, and that's like a big concern I know of, or was at least. I'm sure it still is, of the Roslyn team, of like people doing things that were really performance bad, and so like there's certain patterns I think that work better. So like, is there any kind of learnings that you've had of like what to do and what to avoid?
Not really, because the incremental generators, whatever they're doing under the hood, seem to be a little bit smarter. I mean, I think I've been nagging at you about this for weeks. So as I go through my thought process is that now to be fair, you started this, right? Make everything AOT. So John nags at my open source. He wants AOT everything.
Yeah, because that's the way .NET's moved, and like that's how you get, you know, the best performance on mobile apps and stuff. Like the .NET has really leaned into that. So like library authors, if you can make your stuff AOT, it's going to just be that much better for everyone.
But you know what I think is even more important though with all this stuff is that yes, AOT makes things faster. It can make things bigger, right? But if you're looking at .NET MAUI apps, one of the biggest bugs that people for years, the biggest thing was, you know, I released my app and now it's crashing, right? Because trimming and, you know, trimming's always been there. I think all the trimming stuff that we're getting in .NET actually started with like the Xamarin stuff, and it's kind of built over, you know, into .NET as a whole. So the problem's still there, right? You release something, you're like, why is this app crashing? Well, we've known for years, just run your app and release. Try to trim, you know, all the libraries that aren't your own and see what happens, right? So I've been doing that for years, and then you're like, oh, okay, man, I miss this. But if you actually do an AOT compliant app, you can run it in debug, you can run it in release, and you're going to get the same product, right? Because the trimming problems, right? If you put in some of those attributes, it'll be like, don't do this reflection, don't do this, don't do this. And once you start eliminating those key factors, it just works. And it's so much faster.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I've been dealing with, so obviously Mediator is one of my babies right now. I've loved stuff I'm doing with it, is killing off all the AOT. But I have like attributes on methods. And in order to get those, you have to do some real funky reflection. Like you got to
Well,
dig through the thing,
yeah.
and it
And
produces.
how is that on doing source gen though? Like, cause is that still, I guess one of the things with source gen, and maybe AI has helped here, is that I've never been sure the best way to go, like, try to dig in and get the information I want. Like assembly level attributes, that's easy, that's fine.
Yep.
Maybe even attributes on like classes and stuff.
But you can get attributes on classes and assemblies without, I mean, it's still reflection, but
Yeah.
it's happy reflection. Like it doesn't trim that stuff. When you get down to the methods, you have to actually get the method info to get the attributes off of it. So that's where
Right.
things start to go sideways on you.
Right,
So
but
classes,
so for
no
source
problem.
gen, you got to use Roslyn to basically go find all those things. Like I'm assuming then for your methods, you're looking, in your source generator for all of those attributes on whatever methods, and then you're generating some code that effectively registers that, in code.
Yes. So what I'm doing right now to make it actually a little bit faster, and this is kind of the thing, you don't want to go scanning every single method of every single class that comes
Right.
through
Right.
your source gen. But every class is basically, as you're typing, it's going to come through, right? Your incremental generator. So every new class, or you mark it with an interface or something, it's going to see that. So because my mediator has got like specific, like there's 4 basic interfaces that that's what's
So
going to hit your code.
okay.
Scan those. Okay, this is a class we're interested in. Let's go look at the method and see if it's got an attribute on it.
So you're
Oh, it
kind of
does?
like reducing by interface first, and then you'll look deeper at anything that implements
Right.
that interface. Okay.
And so far, that's super speedy, right? And it
Yeah.
really only happens once the
One, like,
class has been marked and not
yeah.
changed. It just
Yeah.
kind of leaves it alone.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful and it works. And the code that's coming out of it is quite fast. Now, the thing that I have is I'm trying to get into the HTTP generation portion. And one of the
Mm,
big things that happens there is JSON objects.
yeah.
And those have been tough, right? I think I've been nagging at you forever. It's like you can't cascade or kind of what's a better term? Run another source generator from your source generator,
Right.
right?
There's no dependency declarations between source generators. And that
There's reasons.
obviously, what's
There's
that?
good reasons. There's good
There's
reasons for
no,
that.
for sure, but it is a scenario that I know has been like discussed at length between people in Microsoft, people outside of Microsoft. I know Kazoo had like Daniel Casalino had some opinions, and it's one of
Yeah.
those topics that has become like kind of a thing, and even like with the XAML source gen stuff, like Stefan I know had conversations at length with some of the Roslyn folks about that too, because same deal with XAML. There's things that you kind of need to wait on to exist, or you need to know they exist, right? So if you could declare a dependency and start ordering yourself, hey, I always need to run after this other source gen,
Yeah.
things might have been easier, but that's not the case. So yeah,
No.
how did you fix that in your case?
Well, unfortunately, I didn't. And the funny part is I let AI have a crack at it, and it was like, "I'll just generate the text." If you work with system text JSON, the thing they want you to do is build what's called a JSON context,
Hmm.
right? So it's like a little external object, and then they're like, "Okay, we'll put all of our mappings in there." So it's and the code it generates is very. I think it's meant to be fast, right? And I think that's why they do it that way, because then they can find this object, generate the stuff, and be done with it.
Hmm.
I unfortunately had to go a different route, and I'm not against it yet. It is working. I'm not sure about the speed under large amounts of classes, but it's why you have to enable it by default. Is one of the things that we've been able to do to avoid reflection for years, since like Newtonsoft time, is build your own JSON. What are they called? JSON converters. So you say, if you see this object, I'm going to tell you how to read and write that object, right? So you can actually get the raw, you create your own instance, you actually set the properties yourself, you read the properties yourself, and you've avoided reflection,
Hmm.
right? You got a JSON reader or JSON writer, and it just worked. So I'm just generating those. And the good part is that I don't need to change any of the user code to get this performance boost and this AOT compliance, because all they have to do is go and set one flag in MS Build or CS Proj, and say generate JSON properties, and boom,
Mm-hmm.
right now I've generated the OpenAI or Open API, two
There's
close of
two.
names.
Oh yeah. Tell
The
me about it.
Open API document has generated all the HTTP objects for Mediator to consume, and then also stuck on the JSON converter attributes so that it just takes that and goes, oh, I see this other class you want me to use, and it does.
Okay.
And it's a lot faster, man. It's a
Yeah.
lot faster.
Yeah.
Like when that code actually runs, it rips.
Yeah.
And the memory consumption is also, it's crazy. I didn't actually think it would be that bad, but reflection does come with a cost, I guess, like a
Yeah.
bigger cost than you might realize. So the only thing I'm still scared of, like I said, is that under a lot of objects, I'm not sure how long that puppy's going to take to run. Like you're going to see like a hit when you start up your project, is my guess.
Yeah,
But
that could be. I don't know though. Like I've been kind of pleasantly surprised with the XAML source gen stuff, which is it can be I mean it's maybe arguably still less, but in bigger projects with a lot of XAML files, um, it's still quite quick. Like it's not bad.
but how many controls and XAML bits are you going to have in an app? Like let's say
There's a fair
a
bit.
hefty project, maybe 300. Let's say 300 because that sounds like pretty big.
I think
So
bigger than that even.
100, well, 100 to 200 pages. You're not really going to like even some of the
But
big boy apps you see,
yeah. No, yeah, fair. 100 to 200 pages, I guess. But like
and
each
then
one of those
controls.
pages, they still have to go through and output all the code to inflate all of the control stack, right? Like it's
Right, but 200 pages isn't really, it's not really a ton of stuff to go through, right, for a
oh, but
compiler to rip through.
how many like classes are we talking about with HTTP? Like I guess that's
Well,
open
y
APIs are a lot,
more.
but yeah, I don't know.
I've
It's
you know, you
still one of those like sure maybe it takes a few more seconds to load the project the first
maybe.
time, or if you have like no if you have a really bad cache that's like almost fully invalidated or whatever, right? But like incremental, I'm assuming still helps here
I don't know on the start. I think it's
on the
post.
start. Well, no, but on the start, I think I don't think it probably does a full pass every time you open the project. I'm guessing if there's something cached there in like your intermediate folders, it'll still pick that up.
I think Rider does. So I'm obviously a big Rider user because I'm on the
Okay.
Mac, and I think Rider is a little bit more paranoid, which
Yeah.
I get it. Right,
Fair.
those bin object
I
folders, we used to get pretty
Hey,
practiced
hey
about
man,
cleaning them out.
I had the whole plugin in VS Mac and Mono developed to nuke your bin and object folders. I won't throw stones.
We swore about that for years, didn't we?
Yeah.
So anyhow, this is there, and sometimes especially when you're working on the source generators, you got to close your project, reopen it, and let Rider make a full pass at it, and you're like, oh, there's my changes now, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's just a display, but anyhow, it's coming along great. Mediator is going to be AOT compliant. I have like 5 source generators, maybe 6 in there. That puppy now. Yeah, I hope people start checking it out.
I think
I gotta
you need
explain. I'm gonna do a series, I think, on here,
yeah.
just
Yeah,
explaining it
we were
because I think
talking
a
a
lot
bit
of
about
people.
that, right? Like, because it is, to be fair, there's some parts of it, or like even the whole thing. If you just kind of look at it, your docs are great. First of all, like that's not even where I'm going with
On
this.
this particular project, I will admit my docs are not great on older
I mean,
projects, but
you
they're
have
pretty
a
solid.
doc site that
Yeah.
is already surpassing 70% of open source projects. So no, but like if I go to your shinylib.net site and I look at the docs for like all your stuff all together, the docs are good. The part of the problem is like it's not always it's a bit overwhelming, I think, is when you land on it and you're like holy crap, you have a lot of stuff here. What are the parts that are helpful for certain situations and contexts that I'm solving right now? And I don't know that that's something that's super solvable, because it's almost just a product of you have so many things out there that like of course it's
Yeah,
going to be a
it's a
little
lot of.
overwhelming.
I put all of my libraries into one doc site, so I don't need to reinvent the wheel
Yeah,
every
yeah.
time.
And I think that's
But it's
fine.
also I think it's the marketing too, because like David Orton now will often go on the community stand up and be like, Alan did some stuff. I'm not sure what it does,
It's
but it does
shinier.
things. Yeah, it does shiny things,
Yeah.
and it's like that's part of the marketing thing that you gotta. I think I'm still working on. I might go, David. I might come bug you again. Not that he watches our videos yet, but and be like, dude, what don't you understand about these? Like, what is it? My marketing that sucks? Do I need to explain something?
I
Anyhow,
think
I think the live streams, like a here, this use this feature mediator, might
I
help.
think just like doing smaller chunks of like, yeah, okay, what is mediator? Why would I want to, kind of looking through the pattern and explaining it. Like, yes, you have an intro and there's, other similar or patterns,
You do
libraries that do the
problem
pattern.
statements. Yeah,
Yep. Yep. Um,
people
that's
don't
part
need
of
to
it,
talk.
but it's all, it's honestly, and not everybody is the same type of learner either, right? So not everyone can come to a site with docs and read it and really get it, but maybe some people can see you start to carve out some scenarios in code on a stream and be like, "Oh, yeah, that actually is useful." Um, and then for me, I think the other thing is you have a lot of parts baked in here that are really nice if you kind of decide to go all in, right? And I'm
Yeah,
not, and I understand you can certainly pick and choose parts, and that's great. I think there's a few parts of it that for me I had a hard time kind of like getting my mindset to wrap around, starting with pulling it into an existing app and like some of the
yeah.
config stuff, even like, yeah, some of the HTTP stuff is fantastic, but again, you kind of need to like buy into the whole part of it from the get-go, and that's fine. That's by design. That's what it is. So maybe it's more showing like from a new project perspective too, like as people build a new app, take on something new. If I personally, if I can start with something in that context, then I start to be like, oh, I get how I can, build out and use this. And then maybe later I can start pulling it into my other apps because I have a better understanding of it.
Let's make the series John does mediator.
Maybe.
No, you don't need to be on it. But I think that's something I'm going to do on here is just do some of the quick streams. Here's a
Yeah.
feature. This is
Yeah.
why
It's
you want to use.
like give me 15 minutes on, something like your middleware and maybe one one or two, middlewares that you ship out of the box, right? And like how you might use that. Like I did when I made that mouse must eat app, right? That was like for going to Disney and keeping track of the snacks we wanted to eat and where they were. That was when I started to be like, okay, I understand, how some of these pieces are beginning to fit together and how I can kind of use them to my advantage. And it was great. You're able to do some things if you think about them in a different way than maybe you've done in your apps before, and stuff like I think the most telling thing for me, or the most like big like aha moments, was kind of realizing I didn't it was almost like MVU in a sense that I would, you'd go back to the page and like things would all just kind of line up and work because I had implemented the caching. I had implemented the way that, the web request was fetched if nothing was in the cache, or fetched again, after the cache was initially loaded. And authentication, was injected nicely, and just all these different pieces that if you kind of spent the time to do the patterns properly, it's like there were parts of the app design that you could just take for granted that previously were you had to be a little more thoughtful about as you were going, navigating between the app. Hopefully that makes sense.
Kind of. I think that's the key, right? Is that a lot of people, if they do services, they make a cache service, they make a,
Yeah.
10 million services, and then you got to kind of interrelate them. And that was kind of one of the things about the pattern and the middleware, which ASP.NET Core does wonderfully as well, right? It
Yeah.
just really good at layering those things so that they kind of just work.
Hmm.
So that's what I've been working on. I've almost got a version 5 out that's going to be hopefully 99% AOT compliant, aside from a few use cases that have to hang around. Um, and it's source generated out the wazoo. Like I said, there's like 6 or 7 of them now. Um, and you won't have to change your code. It'll just still work. Other than you got to put partials on a few things, but sorry. Can only
Yeah.
do so much. Great.
I think that the only one that feels like that always falls down with any kind of generation, and hopefully I know you've put a lot of effort into it, so it'd be interesting to see how it does with different web APIs, is like the HTTP stuff, right? Like, I know it feels like every open API spec or whatever I've tried to like generate anything from in any language, it's like it always just is terrible. And like probably most of that is the author of the spec, right? So like I took the Apple configuration, what App Store Connect API, right?
Oh, yeah,
They publish a spec, and it is horrible. And like, yeah, I get that the generators don't know how to do much with it because the spec sucks, but like it's just like, oh, why can't this just be okay and work?
But Apple goes like everything they do is like the absolute bleeding edge of the protocol, and you're like, dude,
that and
what
like
is this?
probably weird takes on how to use it as well. That other people are like, why would you do it that way?
Apple should just stick to apps. Stay out of the web
It's
world.
back to the Apple push notification service. It's like they do things as dumb and differently as they can.
But it was in the name of speed.
What?
It was in the name of speed, wasn't it? Because they could just have one stream that's
Yeah.
constantly.
I could still talk for hours about how dumb that was. The whole like
Yeah.
you shove a bunch of bytes at them and they might eventually tell you one of the things that failed, and you have to just figure out how many things you sent before that one failed. And
yeah, it's gotten somewhat better. At least it's HTTP based now, but it's still weird.
They moved.
HTTP-based.
Yeah, they moved like almost immediately to HTTP 2 before HTTP 2 was really like well implemented. And so then, and like I remember back with my library, I tried to do it, and there was no HTTP 2 client support in .NET that had support for the TLS, like the way that was implemented. And so you just like I couldn't do it. So I started writing an HTTP client, HTTP 2 client, and then I got blocked on some SSL stuff that I was just like, I can't do anything about this. Like the framework needs to support this.
I bet you
and then
AI would have choked on it too.
Oh yeah. And then they moved from that. I think they moved right over to HTTP 3 shortly after like 2 became somewhat normalized. And you're just like, guys, come on. This doesn't have to be like this.
That's what happens when the old farts in the web, the W3C get going. They're like,
probably because they only were given like 6 Mac Minis to run their whole infrastructure on or something. So they're like, well, I guess we got to make it fast.
That sounds more like the Maui team at a point. This is all the computers you get. Figure it out.
This is all the stuff you have. Go for it.
So
yeah, what did we miss the main plot today so far?
No, we're talking .NET, right? That's what people want to hear, I think. Yeah, nobody's sworn at us yet, so
nobody's here to swear at us anyway.
Yeah, all of our viewership is usually offline, which is fine because we're not consistent with timing.
We need to make these go to the podcast feed at some point. I don't even know if people might know that these exist who used to listen to the podcast.
Well, because I advertised the poop out of it on Blue Sky, a little bit on LinkedIn. We're going to work on that, and definitely on X or Twitter or whatever the hell it's called these days. So we'll fix it and get it out. But people are watching. They're watching on the YouTube, so that's good. So in continuing, we do a lot of talking, but we also start building projects. So, I mean, we still, Heads Up was more .NET MAUI, and that's just because that's how people seem to know about us and the stuff we write. But I figured with this next project, I mean, this one's going to be a little bit more demo-y than a little bit. I think Heads Up was pretty complete, right? Aside from some bugs that we could figure out if it was a little bit more professional set, the thing works really well. The speech to text works well. The accelerometer stuff, that works reasonably well, though it's not front and back, it's more side to side, whatever. That stuff is working really, really well. So I think we're pretty much done with that. We got some AI in there. Fantastic. And like I said, my kids love the game. They hate the theme song because I dance to it every time, but that's all right. So I figured this time we'd go a little bit more demo-y, but kind of branch out a bit. And one of the things I tend to see is a lot of people doing Signal R with mobile. They do Signal R and they don't know how to scale it. And I noticed still a lot of projects out there aren't doing like
So
Aspire. So
what
go
what
ahead.
what are they using Signal R for? Like what's because the thing with mobile is always that's great when the app is in the foreground, right?
Right. And I mean, even if it goes to the background, if GPS can keep your app hot, it's still
Sure.
like if there's a pause, right? Like let's say I'm sitting still, iOS will tend to pause your app. Android's a
Mhm.
little bit more. I don't know. I don't know where 16's at personally. I haven't looked at it yet, but it works. But I think they're a little bit more like just keep sending, just keep sending. Who cares? Every second, just blow that battery up as best you can.
Yeah.
iOS will pause, especially they've got newer geofence and GPS APIs as of whatever 26, and it was 18 before, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
17, 18, they changed the API. And so now if you're at rest, then your app should shut up too, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Which, yeah, I can see it. I mean, you don't know if they've lost connectivity. So if you're kind of like a dispatcher or somebody that's monitoring these, you don't know if your users died
Mhm.
or just, I don't know, not moving. So it kind of sucks, but that's the way it is now. So the thing I keep seeing is that if you stop and Apple freezes your app, your Signal R connection's gone, in which case
Right.
everything's wasted. You should have just called HTTP. And that's something I see with mobile all the time. Just don't think about Signal R unless it's
Well,
absolute real time and your app is in the foreground. But just
is it just what are some of the maybe without getting into details you can't, but like what are some of the use cases that they're using Signal R for here in the first
usually
place?
to push GPS
Just
is a
GPS,
common one because that's
hey, I want to just keep sending my position up to the server and
the only other time where you generally tend to see it used is chat, which chat makes a little more
right,
sense if your app is in the foreground.
sure.
But then you're like, well, I need to push notification anyways.
Well, like
Right? So
what kind of
it's
chat are people implementing in their own app? Like I don't know, that one's weird to me too,
well,
just because
you
like
want the 3 bubbles because 'cause I'm
no,
typing
no, no,
something,
I get it,
right?
but, like,
Like,
unless you're a chat app, like, who's doing I don't know, who's building that into their app
and
that's not using, like, some
chat's built
SDK?
into everything now.
Or that's
Everything.
not AI and they're just using, those APIs instead.
Right. So it's people still do that, but one of the things is that they go into Signal R and then they start using backplanes, and backplanes are, back breaking to set up, right? There's a lot of effort in that, and you end up with, like, kind of these microservice-y things, which obviously Aspire and we're gonna do some Aspire as well today too, with what time we have. We're
Yep.
probably just gonna frame out the project and say, "Here's what we've got to start." But one of the things is once you've got Aspire, you can do microservices, but don't. Like, start you don't need 3 you don't even need 3 microservices to start. You need 1 service. Here's my API, unless you're splitting it out by business type per se, like user type.
Yeah, yeah,
um, just build out an HTTP client. But one of the greatest things now, I've been trying to get you to use it, but you got to have a use case for it,
yeah,
is Orleans. So
yeah.
if you haven't heard of .NET Orleans, it's an actor-based framework, and I mean, yes, there's some open source ones out there, like paid options as well that are fantastic. That probably are even a little more feature rich, but Orleans is kind of out of the box actor-based framework, and it is phenomenal, right? And they've even made it so that it can talk to Kubernetes if you want to get into that nonsense and craziness, and it can elasticize itself. Like, it can expand and shrink as it needs to. And one of the greatest things is that when we write APIs, it's request response, right?
Yep.
So I request something, it hits a database, returns data. And that kind of sucks because sometimes you're like, well, I need a timer running. So then you make a worker process that's looping through your database all the time. That sucks too, because now we're hitting the database constantly. So what Orleans does is it has these little things called grains.
Mhm.
And within that grain, it's like a process that you can run a timer. You can keep data inflated. You don't, it's almost like a cache. And in some cases, you people do use grains to cache. And so that data stays in memory. And if it's not hit for, a set amount of time, or maybe you say, okay, I'm done. This grain is now, the user's logged off or whatever, expire the grain, it writes its state and it shuts it down. Right. So it's really like this
So,
this
I is
process that can live and breathe in memory.
So is
And
that
then
like you make a grain handle like the incoming GPS like ping like updates or something like that? Okay.
right. So user logs in, right? So I like to say, okay, so I'm starting my day. I'm a delivery driver. Delivery driver logs in, checks into work, which starts a grain. So dry delivery grain or worker grain or whatever we want to call it.
Mhm.
And the ID is my user ID, right? And then what starts happening is I start pushing my GPS coordinates to that grain. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean I'm storing them, right? Because one
Right.
of the things grains isn't good with is storing database like logging
Yeah,
records.
if
Right?
you're gonna like push it up and store it, every one that gets pushed to the database, like why would you use the grain for that anyway? Kind of right. Like
You might still push the logs through to the database, but you're not reading it, right? You may be keeping the last maybe 10 minutes of
yeah.
GPS just to say he's moving, here's the deliveries,
And I'm
etc.
assuming like when that grain goes out, then something like that, you could be like, okay, the grain's cleaning up. Let's go save out the last location or the last
Yep.
whatever the route that they took, something like that.
And it's so good at doing it, right? And what ends up happening is that people are like, well, this is distributed, this is microservicey. The greatest thing about Orleans is that if it needs to elasticize itself and spawn instances in Kubernetes, it links those two together. And what's really cool is that it's like, okay, well, there were grains here. Now we're going to spin them up in this other instance, and they can talk to each other if they need to,
Yeah.
right? So it's like a microservice without being microservicey. And it can do that through Kubernetes. You can deploy to Docker. It's fantastic. And you still have to have reasonably good use cases for it. Like I said, something that's like a session based thing, like a delivery driver. I'm going to work for 8 hours delivering stuff, and I need to
Yeah.
follow you. And so that's a great thing. And then you can see the log in, log out. I don't have to go pulling up your user profile every time you hit the database. Voila. It's
Yeah,
a piece, it's a process that stays in memory, and it's awesome.
yeah,
But
that is
you gotta
super
pick your
interesting.
poison.
Yeah.
So I'm going to share my screen. I figure what today we'll start doing is this is kind of some of the things that I go through. We'll probably get to Aspire. We won't get to, maybe I'll create the app as well. I mean, we only got what,
Yeah.
10-ish,
Yeah, 10-ish
no,
minutes.
15 minutes.
It'll be
Um,
interesting for me to see because like one of the things I know Aspire has continued to improve and evolve, and probably the last time that I played with it, stuff has hopefully maybe changed since. That'd be interesting.
well, it's come a long way, man. Like Aspire is pretty darn good now. So I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully this comes up all right. All right. Hide that junk. John will complain about me when it's small in a second.
Yeah.
So how is that by the way? Are we all right with that
Mm,
size?
I mean,
I can't really make this bigger. I guess I can.
well, you can
He's like, "Make
change
the
your
screen."
desktop resolution.
All right. I don't like it. I know.
Yeah,
So
it's not about
why
you.
can't we broadcast in 4K? I know. It's not about me. Why can't it be about me? Give me a second
Because
here. Because that's the way it is. Okay, let's see if okay, that's too big.
no, that's great.
Well, how's that?
That's
Meet me in
fine.
the middle.
That's fine. It's fine.
John, I know you. Fine is not.
No. It's
You
just
want,
do that, and then we'll look at text size after.
okay. Well, I can text size. I can make bigger. What
Yeah,
is
I know.
this?
But like, yeah, I
So,
can read this. I can see this at least. So like, hopefully, people have a chance at. I always wonder too, like, if people consume this on their phones ever too. That makes it a bit harder because like I don't know if you ever do like have a video going picture in picture that's like on the top part of your phone, and then I'm like doing something else, and maybe that's just my brain.
I don't usually watch coding shows on my phone.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't watch coding shows, but sometimes there'll be stuff I'm like, oh, I gotta like go in full screen now so I can see the detail for a second of what's happening here. Anyway,
Well,
this is okay.
hopefully John's old eyes can see this, and we can, if it's too small for you,
I
complain,
have
and then we
glasses
can
for a
fix it.
reason. I actually have, you know what? I have 20/20 vision technically, but I'm such
But
a
not.
no, I can't. I pass all the tests, but I get like headaches and complain about things too much that I have glasses still. So I have on my license like it doesn't say that I need glasses or anything because I don't,
But you do.
but I do.
but you do. All right. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create the app host.
So this
for
is an
Aspire,
Aspire
that's
project. Yep.
Right. This is the thing, and I'm going to do these piece by piece.
What's the other type in there? That's not app host. I'm curious. What's in that drop
Shared
down?
service defaults.
Service defaults. Okay, so
this is more like
this doesn't
shared
scaffold up the whole thing for you. You're doing it kind of project by project.
Right. I chose not to do a template because
that's fine.
A little bit
I
easier,
like it.
a little bit more manual.
It's one of those things like if you can kind of see what's going on and understand the pieces, I'm happy about that.
So, and one of the things is a lot of people for Aspire go, I don't need it because I'm doing a small project. That's one I would argue against. And the reason I would argue against is because Aspire isn't just about, about microservices and deployments and CI/CD. One of the greatest things it does is the F5 experience. And I know that's something you and the Maui team used to discuss, is that F5 experience, right?
Yeah.
And what that means is, how many steps does it take me to get to running this app on my computer?
Yeah, if I want to debug the whole thing, right? If I have a server or like some kind of backend service, and then I have a front end mobile app or Blazor app, I just want to hit the run button and go.
Right. And one of the things is, let's go back to our ancient days, right? Normally we'd run a little local version of SQL Server.
Yep.
We'd find some sort of SQL Server script that probably took somebody days to write, or we pulled it out of an existing database and then we dumped it in. Then we ran another script to create some seeded data.
Yeah.
And it always had to be maintained, right?
Yeah.
And then we had to install SQL Server, we had to install .NET, we had to install all these things, and we still could barely press F5 because then we needed to change the connection string.
Yeah.
It was hell. Like,
and then you'd have to go, like, maybe you had 2 instances of Visual Studio open, like one for your like web project that you were going to debug against, because maybe I don't know if this was just me, but I would often be like, well, for day to day, I can just like code against my client against whatever server is there. But then if I needed to like debug the whole thing down the stack, okay, well now I got to flip over to a local version of it because I didn't always want to code against the local server because there was stuff, data and stuff that I wanted from the live one to see. But it's just like this whole switching everything back and forth and running multiple things and configuration changes. Yeah.
What ended up happening is you had to, right? So we might have, in this case, we're going to have a DB migration. We're going to have, which is kind of like a mini app. It's like an app that starts and then goes away. We'll have an API. We'll have our actual front end app, which is going to be different anyways. So what ends up happening is that you end up having to put this config everywhere. So Aspire is good at, the app host specifically is good at spraying the configuration from one spot to all of the apps that need it. What it's also great about going back to the database is that it can spin up automatically like a Postgres or SQL Server with like one line of code. And then I can say, here's my entity framework stack, create a data seeding mechanism of some sort. And I can end up pressing F5 on the Aspire app host, and it's going to run. Now it takes a little bit longer to get going, but it's going to go and say, oh, I see you need Postgres. I'm going to create a Docker container for that, which then needs a password. And then I'm going to set that. And then I'm going to make sure that that database is stored somewhere where you can back it up. And then I'm going to take that password and that user and that database I just created and pass that connection string to all of the apps that need it. And it's like, dude, like, even for a small project, that's freaking awesome, right? Like, it'll just, I can give this to you and say, John, clone this Shiny repo and press F5. As long as you've got the workflow for Aspire installed, which on Windows you will, it's just going to run. And it's going to go create your database and your APIs. And in some cases, I mean, if we're even talking dev tunnels, I personally use ngrok right now, but I use ngrok and dev tunnels to spin to a Maui app. Now, I know Maui's got an Aspire thing coming. Not 100% sold on it yet. Wait and see what comes out. But that's the whole part is that the configuration pushes into it, and all these things that you might not have even known what the configuration is with no work.
Yeah. It's so awesome. So the idea, the thing that always sold me on the idea was like, okay, if it, first of all, if it can run and start debugging, my multiple projects, which has always been difficult with Maui apps in the mix because of anyway. But if I can hit F5 and then, my service spins up, then my Maui app starts up. And then like you're saying, like that configuration, if that flows all the way into my Maui app and suddenly my Maui app, I didn't have to write any configuration code or like manual code to say point back to my tunnel, or my local host where the thing's going to be running at with the port that it's running on. It just all lights up, right? Because it gets that the Maui app will get that configuration passed over to it. And I know I don't know what the state of it is in terms of like dev tunnels and choosing different things. I know the Aspire, I think they were looking at like a more generic way to implement tunneling so that you could kind of pick your own provider, right? Because I think the whole premise has typically been like, we're going to give you nice stuff out of the box, but like we don't necessarily want to try and lock you into like you have to use Microsoft Dev Tunnels if you want to do any of this, right? So if that, I don't know if that where that's at, but like I think essentially the goal is to have that all work. And so for mobile, that's even more kind of interesting because for like Android, if you want to come back and debug against a service running on your dev machine, I'm not going to use DevBox, that's a different thing. You have to like figure out how to let Android, because Android is like it's kind of a different device, right? You have to figure out how to get it to be able to connect back to that service running locally. And so one way that they can do that pretty easily, I say easily, is to have some kind of tunnel set up where it can get back to that service. And so you've suddenly just kind of taken out this whole complexity of, can I get HTTPS working on the client, or do I have to add like exceptions to my app to let it not care about validation of TLS and stuff? Or, do I have to set up my own like tunnel locally and work with that manually to be able to do all this to the point where it's just like, this just all gets wired up and it just works and connects back and you don't have to touch anything. Like that's the dream.
So what I've been doing for quite some time is obviously I have my own network set up.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very easy for me to make a static route and then point all of my apps at that static route.
Sure.
If you've ever heard of ngrok, so NGROK, which we'll probably show next week when we start building this app out. ngrok is an existing tunneling service that already works, and there is a community version of it. I'm going to pull it up right now, which I use quite a bit. So here's the community toolkit.aspire.hosting.ngrok, and you basically give it your URL and a key, an API key, and this will go out and say, oh, okay, your web API that you've wired this up against is running on port 1831 on your local dev machine, and it's on localhost. We're going to tunnel your ngrok URL right to that, and then you can actually hard code. I say hard code, but you can code it right into your mobile app or your front ends, and you don't have to worry about all the stuff. Right. And then the best thing about ngrok is that you can actually see, because a lot of people do all this stuff to see all the HTTP traffic. ngrok gives you like a perfect panel, and it says, this is exactly headers and all what got sent. This was the exact response, right? And so it's a pretty cool service. I recommend people use it, look at it. We won't go into that today. I'm just kind of going through.
Yeah, I didn't realize that they had all the Aspire hosting stuff built out. So like basically, yeah, then you're kind of doing the same thing, and your mobile app then just gets the configuration of what that tunnel endpoint is, right? And then it just talks to it. Like, yeah, this is the whole sell on like, don't say that you don't want to use Aspire if it's just like whatever small project, because if you're dealing with anything that's more than just the client app itself, and you ever think you will be, like, this just saves you so much headache if you just do it from the start, right? And learn it. You gotta learn a little bit. There's a bit of a learning curve to like what the pieces are and kind of how things flow and fit together, but it's worth it because once you do, you got this.
So I'm going to go ahead and create our web API.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've got about 5 minutes left on the stream. I'm going to frame out all the apps, right? So I'm going to create, so I've got the service defaults. I'll go back to what that means in a second. Mm-hmm. I've got our app host, which is going to be basically our launch point. I'm going to create a web API now. So web, we don't need an AOT one. I'm not going to worry about authentication. We're not going to get into that with this project. This will be a fly by the seat of your pants app. So we're going to do gone.net. Where are you? By the way, I'm calling this app Where Are You, right? Because we're going to broadcast our location.
You got Where Am I and Where Are You in there.
Really? Do I?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks, John. Thanks for pointing that out, bud. I knew I could count on you.
Of course.
It's awesome. Okay, so we got this. I'm going to create our API. Now, before I go any further here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this API. I like to delete the JSON. And the reason I delete the JSON settings is because all that stuff is going to come from my app host. So it's going to pass it through environment variables. And when these deploy, they usually end up deploying as containers. So first thing I'm going to do is to my API, I'm going to add that shared defaults. Now, we don't know what this is yet, but basically it's a shared project that distributes possibly libraries that are going to be in use everywhere, like Orleans or Entity Framework or, the Postgres connection. Well, probably not even that one, but it's going to contain a lot of that shared setup or wiring or boilerplate or whatever you want to call it. So I'm going to add that to our APIs. We're not doing anything with it.
What's the I guess, maybe we'll get there and see like a good example of why those things are set. Like, it's like, why is that separated from the app host?
Right. Because these service defaults are going to know how to read the keys, the setting keys that are going to be passed through environment variables from our app host. Okay. So in here, we can see there's already like configure open telemetry, add default health checks, add service discovery. That's just so we can say there's an HTTP service running here, and there might be another one over here. And
also, you gotta bump that text size up.
Oh, okay. There we go.
That's pretty. There we go. There we go.
All right. So we've got, and then it's got stuff like resiliency, right? So HTTP requests retry. I'm going to end up putting stuff like, so all the open telemetry junk is in here. I'm not even going to bother figuring that out. But I may also put like Entity Framework setup, right? So Entity Framework in terms of we're using Postgres, and here's where our DB migrations library is, and here's where the actual app DB context is, right? So we're going to go through all of that. So right now, this is pretty bare bones. I've added it to our API. I don't care about open API in this. We're just going to delete that. And the first thing I'm going to do is do that add service defaults. So without doing any work, right? Just Aspire on its own with its own magic dashboard is going to wire in all the open telemetry, which means all of my endpoints are going to get logged and shown. And just with nothing. I haven't done anything, and I can press F5 and we can see how long an endpoint is taking, for example. Now we're not there yet because I've gone and deleted everything, but we'll do that. So we've got our service defaults, pretty bare bones API. Now I'm going to take that API. I'm going to add a reference of the actual API project, which this is kind of throws people off because they're like,
yeah,
isn't that the top project? It is. But what happens with the Aspire app host is it does some kind of funky things with it. So I'm going to add the API to the app host. And what I'm going to do is now when I go builder.add project, this is going to come up and I'm going to type API and hopefully, what do we call this? Let's go gone.net. There it is. So it's generated this where are you API in the where am I? Yes, thank you. App host. So I do that. And I want to expose with external HTTP endpoints because it is an HTTP service. Oh, I have to give it a name. I usually just call it web API. Okay. And I'm going to store this to a variable also called web API because I might use this later, like when I use ngrok, which we're not going to get to right now. And then let's also put on our database. So I said Postgres, right? So I'm going to add Postgres, and I'm going to call this, sure. Oh, what don't you like about it?
It's just so long.
Oh, yeah, it doesn't like the name. I love the generators. So I'm going to just do gone.net. I love that the what is it? The analyzer caught that. It's like, don't put dashes in it or underscores.
Yeah.
So I'm going to add this to a variable. So this is our Postgres server or our container. And there's still some more stuff.
What's adding? Are you naming the container then, or the database itself?
Yes.
Or okay.
No. So the next thing is the database, right? So I'm going to go ahead and go Postgres. And again, this isn't complete. I'm just starting with the bare bones. I'm going to set add database. I'm just going to call this gone.net for now, DB or something.
Yeah.
Okay. And now I've got this database variable. Doesn't matter why I have that, except for this, because now I want to do with when ready. Is it ready? I have to remember what the heck it's called. With completion. See, I'm going to have to open up another project. I can never remember the stuff. Here, with reference. So I want to reference a database. I'm going to pass that in. And what is it? Completion. Wait for. So I don't want to wait for it to complete, right? Because the database is never going to shut down. So it'll be waiting for the database. I want for it to wait for it to be more or less started.
What's the difference? But there's wait for, and then there's wait for
this
start.
One's
wait
newer.
Behavior is okay. Is
it waits for it to be in a running state, right? But so it basically, when it turns on the container, it's ready to go. And that's not completely true because the database needs some stuff. So I'm going to say wait for database. Now we're going to get into how we migrate and seed this, in which case we end up waiting for the migration process versus the database. But for today, that's pretty good. We've got we're spinning up a Postgres server container. We're creating a database in it. And then we're linking our API with a connection string. This is essentially going to pass the database connection string. And then we're saying, don't start the API until the database is actually up and healthy.
So will that connection string be generated for you, like the name and config name and all that fun stuff?
Yep.
Cool. Yeah.
It's beautiful. So that's basically the premise, the base layer that we're going to set up. I mean, we're going to get to the DB migrations. We're going to get to, maybe I'll just create the Maui app.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you have an app in there at some point to take advantage of.
The difference is I don't plan to wire up a Spire to this. I know it's out there. Sorry.
You're using Net 9. I think I was going to say most of the stuff is I think Net 10 at the earliest.
Right. I'm going to use my templates. So this is the Shiny templates just because it gets my GPS stuff going real quick. Where are you? What are we going to call this? Mobile? Sure. Let's call it Maui. Everything's Maui now. And so I'm going to do, what do we want this guy? We'll just do a normal app. So we'll do community toolkit. I don't need mediator for this. We're going to just push GPS coordinates into this app when we get there. So we don't need Blazor. We don't need audio. We need, where is it?
You need background.
I don't need background jobs.
Okay.
I need GPS. There it is. So we need this one. Do we need locations? No. Do we need notifications? Yeah, let's add it. I usually use local notifications when I'm doing GPS. Just because if something happens, it's nice to know about it. We don't need camera. We'll leave the Maui community toolkit just because you never know what the heck you need. You basically always need it, right? We don't need authentication.
You're probably going to want to do maps.
I'm going to do maps. Yeah, let's have maps. I'm going to use my Maui shell library, which isn't anything magical. And we're going to call this org.gone.net. Where am I? Where are you? Where are you? Jeez, I can't even get it. Where are you?
That you got to put IO as it's not an org. It's an IO.
What?
It's gone.net.io, isn't it?
Oh, I guess. But isn't the organization? Okay, whatever.
No. It's always the reverse of the domain.
Oh, all right. Okay, so we've got community toolkit. We've got maps. We've got local notifications. We've got GPS. We've got MVVM toolkit. I usually would do Sentry because it's a background app. Sentry's fantastic to have in that. Throw us a sponsor. I think we're good there. I think that's good. So I'm going to create this. So my Shiny template is just going to go ahead and wire in all the things that I always forget, because GPS background is fun. So we'll take a look. Let's see what we've got. So it's created our GPS delegate. It's probably done all of the platform stuff that I always forget. Info plist, privacy.
You need there.
And then if I go into the CS proj, it should have done all of the. There we go. It's taking its sweet arse time, isn't it? It should have done all the stuff for the keychain. Yeah, beautiful. Beautiful. It's all there. And then we're going to do, that's probably it for now. I think we've got a good start.
Yeah.
We'll show the, here, this is what the stuff I always forget right here. All this junk.
Yeah. Permission.
Android stuff. Yeah. So there, that's why I use that template. Nothing magical to it. It set up all the map junk we need, because we're probably going to do maps. And then what we're going to do is next week, we'll start wiring in ngrok to our Maui app. We're going to make our API actually do something. And we'll probably have an app, either a web app, a Blazor app. I was thinking even maybe low code, what do they call that? Power Automate, Power
BI. No,
Power,
what?
Power
Apps.
Platform.
Power
Platform,
like that.
Power Apps. There's an individual I know that's awesome. He does it. Maybe have him come on and do the web version, right? Where all of the GPS feeds are going into his app, but we'll see if that's possible. And then we'll build our DB migration so that we can actually see that thing that I was talking about, that, even for small apps, Aspire is awesome. And then we'll start our Orleans. But I'm going to put that all in a README. I'm going to commit this to a GitHub repo, so people can start following along. And this should be a pretty fun app to build. Should be.
Yeah. Good start, I think.
Cool. I think it's good. All right. Let me, I'm going to end my screen share. And so I think that'll do it for this week. How do we do for time?
A little over.
Oh, we went over. I went over.
Darn it. That's all right. Got to a good point. Now we're good for the week. We can all go into the weekend. We can watch the Jays win, and we can be happy.
Don't American fans don't hate us. We're
it's fine. We're just we got a little baseball IQ. It's fine.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining. Until next week, assuming none of us break our back or John goes on vacation again.
Yeah, you never know. We'll let you know.
Ciao for now.
Bye.
Bye.